For more, we are now joined by Dr. Jack Bloom, the DA Gauteng Shadow MEC for Health. Dr. Bloom, thank you so much for your time and for joining us this evening. So you put forward a motion to pay tribute to Babita Deokaran and that proposal to honor her memory. How do you believe political leadership should respond to whistleblowers such as Babita Deokaran, especially in environments where corruption is deeply entrenched?
I was encouraged by the unanimous support for the motion from all political parties today, and people expressed support for whistleblowers, that they should be encouraged. And, I really think we do need more whistleblower protection, and that's the way forward. But I think the broader point that should be made is that you shouldn't need to be a whistleblower. You should be able to work in an environment where doing your job includes pointing out wrongdoing, and that you're rewarded for pointing out wrongdoing. You shouldn't have to blow the whistle. You shouldn't have to step outside the organization to get action. I did point out in the debate that Babita Deokaran was an internal whistleblower. She actually informed the then chief financial officer of her suspicions, and she trusted that what she had reported on would be acted on, but it wasn't. She was actually betrayed. And that's the tragedy of it. We have to reform the public service. We have to reform the working environment, whole departments. If we take the Gauteng Health Department, is it now still an environment where people are afraid to point out wrongdoing? Do they have to blow the whistle outside instead of raising their concerns internally? So yes, whistleblowers are incredibly valuable. They're brave, courageous people. But ideally, we shouldn't have to have safeguards for them, because we should be having workplaces where they are valued people for doing their job and exposing things that need to be exposed.
Certainly. I mean, you even mentioned that there needs to be a completely transformed Gauteng Health Department. And this is, of course, where you would want to see cultural changes that require the department to promote honesty, competence, as well as integrity. How do you assess the effectiveness of the current anti-corruption measures within the Gauteng health system?
Not at all, because the rot starts at the top. And last year, Premier Lessufi appointed Mr. Leseva Malatana as the head of the Gauteng Health Department, despite the fact that he was being investigated by the Special Investigating Unit for allegedly participating in 10 million rands of bribes, along with two other officials, to influence contracts. Now, of course, nobody with a cloud hanging over their head should have ever been appointed in the first place. And quite recently, the Premier was forced to suspend Mr. Malatana because he failed his lifestyle audit. And in fact, in the Gauteng Legislature today, I said to the Premier, do you apologize for your bad judgment in appointing someone like this in the first place? Because how can you have a department that's notoriously corrupt and someone like that in charge of it? And now he's been suspended. So the Premier refused to apologize for it, which I think is unfortunate. But they haven't had a permanent a chief financial officer for a number of years now. They keep having acting people. This is not a department that has got competent, ethical people in charge that I think can take them forward, and too many acting positions. And now that the head of department's been suspended, we're going to have to wait for his disciplinary to conclude before we can get a new appointment there. So it's very unsatisfactory, I'm afraid to say.
So going back to the memorialization and the public recognition that you have proposed for Babita Deokaran, you've also proposed that there be bursary funds, there be naming of facilities. How do you envisage this of these memorials inspiring future generations with regards to coming out and whistleblowing?
Well, there's a variety of ways in which she could be memorialized, and the wording of the resolution is in consultation with the family. We absolutely have to take their sensitivities on board and what is most appropriate. I discussed it with the family beforehand, and they said that Babita always had an intense interest in education and upliftment, and maybe a bursary fund in her name might be the appropriate one, or a personnel service award, or yes, a facility, a worthy facility that would bear her name. So there is a deadline given in the motion that they have to report back within 6 months. Hopefully, they have good faith discussions with the family and come up with something that really indeed is a tribute to her memory and encourages all of us. I must say that she was a hero, and hopefully more people are inspired by her to do the right thing.
Well, another story that is hot on the heels, especially in the line of work that you're doing, Dr. Bloom, is the food shortage at the Charlotte Maxeke Hospital. And this came to light with regards to a failed food safety inspection at a provincial cook freeze facility, and this being the Masakane cook freeze factory that is based in Tshwane, seeing many patients at that hospital going hungry, forcing families to step in and bring in food. I think one of the biggest issues with this, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Bloom, is that the Masakane cook freeze factory is the only supplier for about 6 hospitals and 17 community health centers, providing about 8,000 meals a day. Should we be looking to spread some of the work with regards to providing for our hospitals in a situation such as this, where now you've got many of these patients that are going hungry on a daily?
Well, I heard reports last week that patients were complaining about food and that, in fact, relatives were bringing in meals for them. So I went to see for myself, and it was indeed true. It's not all the meals. They're getting breakfast and supper, but it was the lunch meal that was being provided by the Masakani cook freeze factory. It was plated food, sort of nutritious, healthy food, which is appropriate for hospital patients. But the Masakani cook freeze factory was actually closed down by health inspectors 2 weeks ago. So and the department's only reacting now because I exposed it last week, which I think is very disappointing, because what I found there is that the hospital, without these plated meals that they were getting, were just giving for lunch, they were giving a piece of bread, a little bit of margarine, and a bit of cheese, which was completely inadequate for that meal. So subsequently, the department has admitted that the facility has been closed, and they say that alternative arrangements are being made. But I think they acted far too slowly, and they say that they've restored meals at Charlotte Maxeke Johannesburg Hospital. I'm going to have to check that out for myself. But what about the other hospitals? 5 other hospitals, 17 community health centers, 8,000 plated meals a day is a lot of meals to have to replace. And of course, how did we have a situation where E. coli was found in a food preparation facility? I think that's extremely serious. Can you imagine if any hospital patients got poisoned by food from from the Masakani cook freeze facility? So it's a situation that's now gone on for 2 weeks. The department says that they don't have a timeline for when the Masakani cook freeze factory will be reopened. So they're doing the best they can with alternative supplies. But I'm not happy with the food supply contracts to Gauteng hospitals in the first place. We've had numerous instances where hospitals have run out of basic necessities, including bread. This happened at the Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital, for instance. And I asked questions about the food supply contracts, and bizarrely, we're getting food from other provinces, from Limpopo, from Free State, and that makes no sense at all. Why should we get groceries from this Free State when we have very high quality, cost effective food supplies in Gauteng? And some of these companies who looked very fishy. They weren't food companies at all, and they looked to be overcharging. So
Right.
I think that, as in the case of the Tembisa Hospital contracts, I think there's fishy contracts here as well.
I mean, the Gauteng Health MEC, Nomantu Nkomoralehuku, gave a briefing earlier today explaining that, yes, it was that E. coli contamination at that food supplier, and that they have now brought in other facilities to ensure that patients are not going hungry. What do you think is at the heart of the problem with regards to the food supply for these hospitals in Gauteng? I mean, you mentioned that we're looking outside of the province to bring in suppliers to provide food for our patients.
Well, poor management at the Masakani cook freeze factory. I have visited there, and they've got machinery breakdowns and all sorts of problems, and obviously a huge hygiene problem that should have been sorted out before. So we should never have had a situation where a whole facility is closed down for 2 weeks now, and we don't know when it's going to be reopened. But with contracts, any contract to do with the Gauteng Health Department, you've got to scrutinise very carefully because I think they in large measure there's corruption, and we're not getting value for money from many of the contracts, and we need to review all of them, particularly food, because why on earth are we getting groceries from Free State and Limpopo? It makes no sense at all. There's transport costs. I think we're not getting value for money. And I think the department needs to pay a lot more attention to, proper contracting procedures so that we get value for money. And most importantly, reliability. Can't have a situation where we run out of food at hospitals and other suppliers. This is common across the board. I've complained about security contracts, which have ballooned up more than 4 times. We're spending more than 4 times what we spent on security a number of years ago, and I don't see value for money for that. So it's a management problem in the main, in my view, and that needs to be fixed from the top.